All right, now let's go out to Ohio. Republican gubernatorial candidate John Kasich is here to tell us all about his ideas on the State of the Union. John Kasich, it is great to see you. And for our viewers who may not remember, you were the top Republican budget man. Actually, you ran the Budget Committee for a bunch of years in the House. So, John, I know you're running for governor, but before we get into your governor stuff.
Sure.
Look, you've got $2 trillion in tax hikes on those who are the likeliest to invest in the economy and businesses and create jobs. And as far as I understand, John, you know this better than I do, there's really no spending limitations or, heaven forbid, spending cuts. So,
no, it's getting to be, Larry, it's breathtaking, the level of debt that's being accumulated. You know, let me tell you, when I left in 2000, I was the chairman of the Budget Committee, the chief architect of the plan to balance the budget. When I left, we had paid down $500 billion of the national debt. We were running a $260 billion surplus, and we had a $5.3 trillion projected surplus over the next 10 years. It could have been used to fix Social Security. And how did we get there, Larry? We got there because we restrained spending. We made the government more effective and more efficient. We cut capital gains taxes to provide an incentive for people to take risks. Now, this is not much different than what Reagan did when he came in and the economy was doing very poorly. We got it out of the ditch. We balanced the budget since man walked on the moon, and we used a tried and true formula. Government is a last resort, not as a first resort. You reduce the cost of supporting government. You provide incentives for people to risk take. Right, now, where are we? The Republicans then took over, screwed the thing up, and the Democrats are unbelievable.
All right, I'm with you. Now, even now, after Virginia, New Jersey, and the Scott Brown Revolution in Massachusetts, he gets sworn in tomorrow. John, I don't hear your message. I don't hear spending restraint from the Republicans. I don't hear it. I also don't hear them cutting the capital gains tax. And in fact, I see a coalition, John, between Republicans and moderate Democrats to extend the Bush tax cuts instead of letting them expire.
Well, that would be great.
But I don't see it, John. I don't understand the GOP message here. I hear Mr. Obama. You don't like what he's saying. I disagree with him on most of these things, but I don't know where the opposition message is, John Kasich.
Well, you know, Larry, I was very critical of the Republicans during those Bush years because they were spending money, they lost their way, and they lost the Congress as a result. And frankly, I think that's why they lost the presidency, because they lost their soul. Larry, I'm a little different now. I've still been critical of them, but I think they do have programs, they do have plans, they just don't get heard. And when you're in the minority, it's hard for those things to be heard. I believe, Larry, that the Republicans have learned their lesson. I believe that. If I didn't believe it, I would tell you that because I criticized them before. I think they do understand controlling spending, and I think they do understand cutting taxes. But, Larry, here's the key for all of us. It's to have the courage to do what's right and to drive the country towards prosperity. The biggest problem we have right now is there's so much uncertainty with debt and higher taxes. And you're right. The Republicans have got to figure out more ways to get their message out.
I'll hear it from a Paul Ryan, great stuff. I'll hear it from a Mike Pence, great stuff. I'll hear it from a Jim DeMint and some others, but I don't hear that unified message. Now, John, let me go back to something. You said some really important things. First of all, the surpluses of the late 90s. You said you restrained spending. Where's the spending limitation bills we're going to have? Mr. Obama has a 3-year spending freeze on discretionary, but it doesn't start until next year, and it's all kind of mañana.
John Kasich, Larry, that's the way they always do it.
All right, so what would you recommend?
What would you recommend?
You used to run the Budget Committee. You were a successful budget chairman. What would you recommend, John? What's the message here?
Well, I think there should be an alternative budget proposed by the Republicans. They ought to figure out how to deal with entitlement spending. They got to figure out how to do with discretionary spending, and they need to challenge the Democrats, and they need to have lower capital gains taxes, at least stabilize what we have now and extend the Bush tax cuts. They need to be heard on that, Larry. That's what I did and my team did when Bill Clinton was president. He raised taxes. Interest rates went up, contrary to what some people believe. And when we won the majority and convinced people that we were going to control government, give them certainty, reduce taxes, look at what happened in the 90s. Things were fantastic. Surpluses, balanced budgets, but most important, economic growth and prosperity and fatter paychecks for America's families.
So there's a pro-growth message here, you're saying. Lower tax rates and spending limitation at the same time. That's what you're telling us. Is that right?
Yes, Larry, if you have a restaurant and there's no customers, you don't raise taxes, which is exactly what Obama's doing. But you just can't cut taxes. You got to cut overhead as well. You do both of them, and that's what leads to, that leads to prosperity and economic growth.
Let's go to Ohio. You're in. All right. What's your message in Ohio, John? You're running for governor.
Same deal. Our government is too big. It's too clumsy. What they just did out here was to raise taxes. The governor believes in big government and higher taxes. And I think what we have to do is make Ohio, just like all over the country, a place where businesses can prosper and where small businesses can create jobs. So we have to balance our budget, which we haven't done. We've got to reduce the size of the government. We've got to make it more effective, more efficient. Common sense regulations, lower taxes. Larry, look. We know what works. I don't know why we have to keep reinventing the wheel. If we follow that formula, families will be better off. This country will be better off.
John, Ohio's decimated. It's a heavy manufacturing state, a lot of auto stuff, all that stuff's decimated. What's this economy look like? Is there any evidence in Ohio that the economy is recovering?
Unfortunately, Larry, our unemployment continues to stay high. In fact, it just bumped up again. We've lost 300,000 jobs in the last couple years. Our young people between 25 and 50 are leaving the state, and young people are leaving. Now, Larry, at the same time, we talk about how do you transition? In manufacturing, go up the value chain. Make parts for alternative energy. Go into avionics and make parts for advanced aircraft. There's still a chance to make cars, but you just can't rely on auto parts. You think about technology. Our workers out here are good people. They're smart people. Great university system. We can get people from the Silicon Valley to come here, but we have to improve the atmosphere in our state so that people will say, if we're there, we'll get a bottom line.
When you go into these union halls or other places, local clubs around Ohio where they've been hit so hard by unemployment, what is your principal message, John Kasich? What's the first thing you talk to them when you go up and shake their hand?
Well, I have a philosophy that government is inefficient, ineffective, wastes a lot, and as we shrink it, we can reduce taxes and have some people that are going to be respectful of people who create jobs instead of regulators going in and knocking them over and bowling them over and retrain our workers. Larry, here's the only bottom line. I'm telling you something. When you look at this national federal debt, it's scary for our children. We depend more on the Chinese. We lose our leverage to take effective action around the world. Larry, we got a problem. Republicans and Democrats, all of them, got to push for this country.
All right, John Kasich, you haven't lost a step. In fact, you've gained a step or two.
I want to come back.
I want you to come back. I'd be back as much as you want. You're always welcome on this show. Good luck in the race out there.